Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet. In the video today, the top 10 famous people mistakenly cited as experts. Celebrities are a big thing in the world, especially in the United States, and they enjoy a status almost akin to a sort of royalty. This has led many people to lend to celebrities a false sense of authority, and soon they start considering their favorite entertainer an expert on a subject that the entertainer is, at best, a dedicated hobbyist at. While some people consider themselves good at knowing the difference, it can get especially tricky because some of these celebrities are actually scientists themselves and are quite competent, just not at the field that someone is citing them on. Becoming an actual expert at something takes a lot of time, dedication, and mastery. Being famous and enjoying doing something or talking about it doesn't mean you are more qualified to lecture on it than the average person. Number 10. Bill Nye the Science Guy is not a trained climate science expert. Bill Nye has long been known for his award-winning show Bill Nye the Science Guy, and more recently he became very notorious in some circles for his debate with Ken Ham, the founder and creator of both the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounters attractions. Those who believe in climate change were in one way delighted by the debate because a scientist was spending time arguing against what they saw as erroneous biblical explanations. But the debate, it wasn't really productive for anyone. Both people talked at each other for the most part and didn't really find any common ground at all to start from, which made it kind of difficult to have a productive conversation. Part of the problem here was that instead of sending a climate scientist, a television personality was sent to argue with Ken Ham. Now, we aren't saying that Nye isn't at least in some way a scientist. He is a mechanical engineer, but mechanical engineering is certainly quite far removed from the field of climate change, and knowing the one certainly doesn't make him much more knowledgeable about the other than anyone else. Nye vociferously argues against charges like this, stating that he knows enough to make valid observations about how climate change is real. But I mean, so does anyone else, and most other people don't have advanced science degrees. Nye, like many celebrities, could probably do with a dose of humility and needs to accept that while he may be very good at explaining scientific concepts, that by no means suddenly makes him an expert at a subject that is not his field. Number 9. Neil deGrasse Tyson is cited as an expert on almost everything imaginable. Neil deGrasse Tyson is probably the most memeable scientist who has ever lived. For some time, you couldn't swing a cat picture on the internet without running into yet another Neil deGrasse Tyson meme. Some people even believe that their enthusiasm for Tyson memes helped kids learn more about science, so that's certainly a good thing. However, like Bill Nye, his main skill when it comes to public interaction is that he's good at explaining simple concepts. However, that doesn't mean he's an expert at all of those concepts. You don't just get a degree in science. There are many specialized fields, and you cannot expect to be a master of more than one or two. Now, to his credit, Tyson does not try to say that he is more than that. He is clear that he is an astrophysicist and doesn't claim to have any special reputation or awards among the scientific community when it comes to discoveries as compared to scientists like Stephen Hawking. He is good at astrophysics and at explaining basic scientific concepts, and he sticks to what he is good at. Unfortunately, it's the internet here that gets a little out of control. Even though Neil Tyson mania has faded a little bit, people still constantly cite him as a certified expert on pretty much every scientific concept imaginable, even ones that have no connection whatsoever to astrophysics. Number 8. Giorgio Tsoukalos, also known as the aliens guy with the hair, on the History Channel. History Channel is a channel that used to once show a lot of documentaries and specials about what actually happened in the past, but has now gone completely off the rails. The History Channel has become a sort of den of madness where conspiracy theorists with half-baked ideas go on about anything from lizard people to Bigfoot to the pyramids, and somehow manage to connect it all back to ancient aliens or even ancient astronauts. One of the so-called experts is a man named Giorgio Tsoukalos, known for his hair and his strange obsession that causes him to connect everything to aliens. Most people assume he is an expert at history of some kind, or at least has a related degree. However, the man was actually a Greek TV personality who was known for commentating on sports. His degree was in sports media and communication, which means he has absolutely zero credentials when it comes to talking about anything historical or anthropological. The only way he made his way onto the show was because he eventually made his way to the top of an alien conspiracy group, and they were likely starving for guests, so he kept coming back. Most people assume he is at least some kind of historical expert, but he's anything but. Number 7. Donald Trump is actually incredibly terrible at both real estate and a business. Donald Trump is probably currently the most polarizing figure in the entire world. People tend to either love him or hate him so much that they wouldn't let Trump shine their shoes if he paid them. Now, whether you love him or hate him, the thing that he claims to have built his success on is his expertise at business and an enormous and tremendously successful real estate empire. Many people who haven't dug too deep, however, may not know that Trump is actually a terrible businessman and an even worse real estate investor. To start off with, Trump has had to file for bankruptcy in some form or another 6 times, which certainly doesn't sound like someone who is great at picking projects. In order to assuage his own ego, he has tried to lie openly in public and claim it was only 4, even though it is a matter of very well documented public record. However, the real kicker is that Trump really isn't very good at making money. Number crunchers who really looked into the details found that Trump would have made more money if he just invested in low-risk, low-return investments of various sorts, instead of trying out various real estate ventures. Indeed, Trump is so bad at making money that he would have made more money if it simply put the money in the bank and had a few financial managers put it in low-risk stocks. And yet, despite all of this, he has built his reputation on his skills as a financial genius. Number 6. Being a celebrity does not make you an expert at cooking. Recently, interacting with your favorite celebrity online has become so commonplace that paparazzi are almost going out of business. This gives more people access to the celebrity, and for many people who are on the same side, it can provide a healthy dose of reality. They see all the flaws of the celebrity, all of the personality defects, and realize they're probably not going to get on with someone that they don't really know. However, some people fly too close to the sun and totally get burned. They start to become obsessed with this level of interaction and start doing everything they can to feel closer to the celebrity, even copying all of their terrible recipes. Now, don't get us wrong, we aren't saying you can't be a decent cook or come up with some decent recipes without years of culinary training, but being famous doesn't make you an expert at cooking or make you a trained chef. BuzzFeed, known for their vapid and mostly soulless content, has been running a series where a staff member tries several different recipes, usually from mostly trained chefs, and then gives the verdict. However, they've also been using recipes from a lot of celebrities, which gives a false sense of validation to people who haven't been trained in that field and shouldn't be compared alongside trained chefs. Celebrities like Rihanna, who probably don't know how to put mustard and ketchup in mac and cheese, should not be compared to the cooking skills of, say, Gordon Ramsay. Number 5. Vani Hari, aka the Food Babe. For those who don't know her, Vani Hari is a woman who started a blog calling herself the Food Babe back in 2011. She quickly gained tens of millions of followers. Hari delusionally believed, or at least claimed to believe, that anything that was slightly chemical or processed was definitely poisonous and bad for your body. She even claimed that anything a small child couldn't produce should not be eaten, which, as most reasonable people know, is an absolutely absurd thing to say. However, despite the fact that her claims are complete nonsense, she has gained a following that has led to giants like Subway phasing out perfectly safe ingredients because it was easier to quell the outrage than it was to get good PR and then argue with customers and explain why they are wrong. The truth is, Vani Hari has a degree in computer science and no certificate whatsoever in the medical field or even in the nutrition field. And no, she has no degree or certificate of any kind in chemistry either, yet she claims to have an enormous knowledge of chemical interactions and how they work in our bodies. In short, she is known by tens of millions of people as an expert on a subject for which she has no training whatsoever. However, there is also some reason to believe that Vani Hari is not being an entirely honest human being to begin with. She makes a fair amount of money from affiliate marketing, and many of the products she is making money from selling, either directly or through affiliate links, actually have chemicals that she put on her own banned list. Number 4. Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert were always nothing more than comedians. The Colbert Report is off the air, and without Jon Stewart, The Daily Show has taken on a new vibe. But for some time, those shows seemed to rule the airwaves when it came to the younger generation, especially those who were more politically involved. Even those people who didn't tend to be into politics knew about Stewart and Colbert and watched them on at least one occasion. This led to many young people making the claim more and more often that they didn't even watch the news, they just watched those two comedy shows, and that was essentially their news. Many were quite proud of themselves for this habit, as if it made sense to eschew the actual news stations in favor of simply watching a short recap while a comedian makes funny faces and exasperated sighs. The truth is that while Stewart and Colbert are both very funny and very talented individuals, neither was trained as a news anchor and neither was trained as experts in politics or world events. Indeed, Stewart studied psychology in college while Colbert studied philosophy as an undergrad. Both of them are entertainers who are often giving their own opinions or own takes on today's events. For as much as many like to decry talking heads, that is essentially exactly what Stewart and Colbert were, just they had a slightly more comedic bent. Now, that's not to say they didn't have a positive impact. A lot of people really got into politics because of them. However, many of these young people also became confused, and some of them today still don't understand what is and what isn't a legitimate news source or legitimate news programming. This makes it much easier to convince people that real news is actually fake news. Number 3. Beyonce gets a lot of credit for being a genius songwriter, but she has a gigantic team. Last year, Beyonce lost out at the Grammys to singer-songwriter and independent folk musician Beck. Beck plays 16 instruments and wrote all the songs for his award-winning album, but Kanye West, famous for previously getting outraged at Beyonce losing an award to Taylor Swift, publicly suggested that Beck should give his award to Beyonce because she deserved it more. Kanye and many of Beyonce's fans often cite her as an expert at songwriting and an expert on musical theory and style in general, but she really doesn't have any particular expertise, practice, or training that puts her above others when it comes to that subject. Indeed, she often has much less than those in her own industry. Now, we aren't saying that Beyonce doesn't have a great voice, or that she doesn't work hard, or that she doesn't contribute creatively to the process of her songwriting, or that she isn't an extremely skilled dancer. What we are saying is that she doesn't know how to play any instruments, and she has teams of dozens of people to help her write all of her songs. Of course, we don't want to be entirely unfair and only single out Beyonce. Most of the biggest names in the industry, such as Taylor Swift or Drake, also have a huge songwriting team. The difference is that the latter two are more open about it. Unfortunately, Beyonce is almost forced to maintain this illusion, as her public image as a demigoddess of R&B kind of requires her to pretend that she is perfect and did everything on her own. The truth is that Beyonce is not the female prince. She isn't a singular genius songwriter, and she shouldn't be wrongfully cited as one. Number 2. Albert Einstein knew little about theology and cared about it even less. Albert Einstein is one of the most misquoted and overquoted people in history. He has at times been quoted as being an ardent believer in God, a staunch atheist, and, well, everything in between. And for some reason, the masses seem to have decided that it is important to figure out where Einstein fell on the spectrum, as if being able to prove such will somehow start swaying unconvinced people to their side, or perhaps they just want some sort of validation. Regardless, Einstein is one of the most oft-quoted figures on the subject of religion and religious philosophy, despite it being something that he talked about little and apparently cared about even less. Einstein was not entirely against religion, but he was not a theologian or a particularly religious man. He believed that if there was some kind of God, he was likely much more removed and aloof on a cosmic scale and didn't bother himself with the petty affairs of men. However, for the most part, Einstein was simply an agnostic who chose not to believe one way or another. He really believed it wasn't important. As far as he was concerned, science could and should be able to do its work without needing to be in conflict with religion at all, which also meant, by extension, that he felt no need to be well versed in the subject of theology. Number 1. A collective group of mums or the like is often seen as more trustworthy than actual science. The anti-vaccine movement has taken hold in an alarming number of people throughout the United States and some other parts of the Western world, and health experts are worrying that many deadly diseases that were thought to be beaten will start seeing a serious resurgence. While the anti-vaccine movement started with an erroneous paper by Andrew Wakefield, it really picked up steam due to word of mouth and celebrity mothers like Jenny McCarthy, who insisted that vaccinations had given their baby autism. She even later claimed that she and Jim Carrey had cured the baby of autism by feeding it a gluten-free diet. While scientific consensus has been strongly against this nonsense from the very start, it hasn't been able to stop it from taking hold far too much with the general public. The problem comes down to the way many people evaluate information, and it leads to many parents improperly considering other mothers or parents as experts simply because they happen to also have a child, as if having and taking care of a kid not only makes you an expert at child rearing, it also makes you an expert at everything that could possibly befall them. One mother says her baby has autism because of vaccines, she is just sure of it, and some of her friends, who are perhaps less experienced mothers, start to consider she may be onto something despite scientific consensus saying otherwise. This is simply because she is a fellow mum and has some degree of experience. Other mums can be a great source of knowledge for young mothers looking for advice, but when it comes to matters of health, their word should not be taken over the word of a trained medical professional. Please. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel for brand new videos every day of the week. Also, I've got another channel. It's called Biographics. It's biographies of notable people from the present day, as well as history from Elon Musk to Osama bin Laden. You can check it out through the icon on the screen now. But if you want to watch something else right now, why not check out another TopTenz video or a Biographics video over there on the right. And as always, thank you for watching. As always, thank you for watching.